the version of the movie Knight Rider. Are you allowed to discuss that? And just please tell me it's happening. Make my dreams come true.
I can tell you, you want the good news or the bad news?
Uh,
I did write it. I did write it. It was great. I don't think they're going to make my version of it. And the problem is my version of it was developed by a man you might have heard of named Harvey Weinstein.
Okay.
who's that? Honestly, I was kind of intimidated about this interview because of a lot of the characters you play are very take no guff, like hard. And I'm like, oh man, we cannot be late to this. We have to be on point.
I know I'm so mean and dark and nasty, and I'm always Miss Bossy Pants, so I always get these roles. I don't know why.
Excuse me, I'm coming down with the little what do we call that?
I don't know, but you're not 6 feet away from me, so keep it.
Oh no. I'm coming down with the little K-Roth Banu. It's more of the words. He's a wordsmith, as we say, Smith, a wordsmith. You know what I'm saying? He gives it to you like, and you don't even expect it. Let me ask you this, because we're both fans of Arrested Development. Like a lot of characters that people resonated towards to that show. Was there a particular character who you had fun writing for, or I can already see. Yep, there's.
Job was my guy. Like Job, Will Arnett. I was a big, and still am a big Magic fan. So when I loved all those characters, but Job. I have two older brothers. One is actually in Jacksonville. Two soldier brothers, actually. Job has a lot of both my older brothers in him, just the kind of swagger. And I loved, that's why, like, if you look at the credits of the episodes, a lot of the Magic-based ones, like Sword of Destiny stuff, are the ones I wrote that they handed to me.
The film is a funny kind of animal because it's unlike the theater, for example, where you have an audience and you get a direct reaction to whatever you do. In film, you don't. And in fact, you might never actually see the film with an audience or in public. So it's so central and important, I guess, when there is feedback of whatever kind. And if it happens to be an award, that's wonderful.
I asked James once. I said, James, how do you choose the roles that you choose when you're looking at material? He goes, oh, Lila, it's all income. And he would come and say, oh, I haven't earned my paycheck today.
It's all income.
There's somebody that you go back with, like years. You guys go way back, and you know who I'm talking about, Peter Posey. You guys,
Parker.
I'm sorry. We researched this 25 times. I knew I was going to do this. I had this right 10 times.
I knew you were too. That's why I had it locked and loaded.
Peter Parker Posey, Spider-Man's cousin. All right, whatever. All right, so you and Parker Posey.
Everybody's like, that sucks, and you're like, no, that's just a normal movie schedule. It's that stupid and weird.
At the end, I had to like kind of make an arrest, but they wouldn't give me a prop gun. So I had to make a choice, like in the moment. So I was like, you stop right there, like with my finger.
I was so, intimidated, and we had a love scene. So I was like, Mr. Eastwood, is it okay if I stroke your chest here? And he's like, yeah, that's okay. Let's just do it again. And he said when he was younger, he used to be very shy about, nude scenes and things. And so all the dressers would come around him, between takes and cover him up with towels and all that. And now he said, and now I just, get out of the bed and I put on the pants. I'm just an old whore.
Because I can remember sitting in the room with Danny McBride and those guys talking about Wild Hogs 2 and then making fun of me for it. There was actually there was a great moment at Funny or Die, are the guys that made Eastbound, that we went for a meeting over at funnyordie.com at their offices, or I guess it was Gary Sanchez Productions or whatever. And on the wall, the Funny or Die writers had made a list of the worst sequels of all time. And one of them was Wild Hogs 2, even though it hadn't been made. And Danny McBride just started laughing. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, that's Brad Smith writing that movie right now or whatever. And they were all embarrassed. Like the Funny or Die people were like embarrassed. But I was laughing. I'm like, I get it. Like, whatever. It's like, I didn't direct Wild Hogs. It is what it is. And then they erased it. Then I went back the next day and it had been erased. I'm like, why did you erase it? I'm not that guy. Like, who cares? Put it back up there. It's funny.
And I think I saw it last year because I was like, you know what? A lot of people talk about this movie. Maybe I should see it again. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so charming, and I thought it really held up.
Just to take a step back, even before Jackie Brown. So even before Friday, see, you got to go back to what you gonna do when the Hulkamania comes down on you.
I think to make a movie like that, you got to have this kind of sincere delusion.
I have to say to you that Matt Damon could not have been more amazing. I mean, a lot of times when you're that big of a star, when they turn around, they have like stand-ins for you. They don't stay. He made sure to stay because he wanted to give me his emotion and feedback from what I was doing. So it wasn't a ton of takes. It was also absolutely freezing and I was pretty much naked. So he was so protective of me. I can't tell you, like, every time I would be shivering like this, just shivering. My fingers were blue, my lips were turning blue, and in between every take he'd be like, get her a sweater.
I was devastated because most of me was on the cutting room floor.
Oh.
And but given a choice between John Candy and Steve Martin and Lila Robbins, who are you gonna cut?
And then they had like the audacity, like in shows after, to call, MTV would call and say, hey, can you get Taika to answer our calls to direct this other thing? And I'm like, you guys, you didn't even want Taika. I had to beg you. I had to beg you to get Taika.
There you go.
And that's, by the way, that's just as a weird offshoot with Taika. That's happened my whole life. Like, Taika was living with me when he was getting ready to direct Thor or whatever. But at that time, he was just doing Hunt for the Wilder People. And we talked about Knight Rider, and he knew I had written it. And he's like, oh, Mike, man, I'd love to do that. Can I get the script? And I called the Weinstein people, and I'm like, my friend Taika, he's a New Zealand director. He's going to be huge. He's doing this What We Do in the Shadows thing right now. Can he have the script of Knight Rider? And they're like, no, we're not giving it to Taika. Who's this guy? And then lo and behold, 2 years later, hey, will Taika read Knight Rider? No, he's done now. He's on Thor. You can't get him anymore. It's just like people in this town are just so dumb, and no one has any imagination.
It's funny how quickly when you switch jobs, how you become the director that you wouldn't imagine. You would think that you would be more sympathetic to the needs of the cinematographer, but in fact you're very quickly, that's his problem.
How did you end up with that specific role as being the guy you're the luckiest guy in the film. You get to make out, smoke cigarettes, do it again, back to one. How did you end up in that role?
Well, there was a casting. I just gotten out of the Navy, and I was living in Woodstock, Illinois, which coincidentally is where a large portion of that movie was filmed. And they had a casting call, which I went to with my girlfriend, who is the lady that I'm kissing in the movie. And they looked at us and they said, wow, they said, we think we've got a part for you right now. You guys just seem to click really well together. And, so I said, oh, that'd be great. Okay. That's pretty easy.
I loved finally working with John Candy and Steve Martin. That was I think we only worked like 2 days on that whole Thanksgiving and coming down the stairs thing. And that was so fun because they were both so adorable and funny and sweet.
Like, for instance, the holding the door open happened. It was actually Ashton Kutcher. I was at a Starbucks here in Sherman Oaks, and I opened the door. So Ashton was behind me, and I opened the door. I'm like, hey, man, and I don't know him or whatever. And he's like, oh, thanks. And he walked in. I was just being nice. And then he got in line. I'm like, I was clearly ahead of you, and I opened the line for you, dude. Like, you should be letting me in line ahead of you. It was just like, so that I went home and I wrote that down. It's like all those little things kept adding into it.
Cameron Crowe is sincere, dear, completely emotionally involved in things. Milos Forman makes directing look like it's as easy as getting out of bed and just going to get a cup of coffee. It's just, the guy makes it look easy as hell. And I have a really funny story about how I learned about that. Bob Zemeckis sees the whole movie in his head before he shoots it. He's got it in his head. He can play it like a movie. He can close his eyes and play the scene he wants to shoot and run it like a movie. He can see everything. Sidney Pollack is on the edge of suicide before he starts the movie. He's so panicked and scared. and nervous. And he's a hyper responsible person. And then he's the dad on the set. He's the guy who knows everything about everybody's job and tells them so.
I mean, I did talk to her bodyguard about whether he'd take a bullet for her, but and he was going on. He's saying, well, prevention is better than cure. So
wow, it depends where.
He comes out and he goes, "Hey, Mike, I've decided the brother drinks." And he pulls out a flask and he just takes a sip. And I was like, oh my God, the guy's, he knows I'm like the producer of the movie. It's so interesting that the guy, he was such an actor that he's like, I've done some backstory on my character, and he's an alcoholic who drinks all day.
It's weird, all of that, or that people, since Homeland, more people are recognizing me on the street, and people recognize me sometimes in New York subway from Law and Order. I've done a lot of Law and Order episodes, so they'll kind of look at me. But New Yorkers are cool. They'll come up to you and start screaming. They just kind of point at you and go, and then
I know you.
You know how it is. It's just really hard no one wants to take the risk of that kind of thing going viral. But Coffeetown existed in the last moment before things went viral. So we got to do all those things. But that's also, I think, one of the reasons that you don't see Coffeetown on Netflix and things like that. I think they watch it and they're like, whoa, no way.
I just say, love the craft. Don't give up. Things can always change. I mean, in The Blacklist, I'm like breaking people's necks and shooting people. Who knew that I would be an action figure at my age? I mean, come on. I mean, strange shit happens. It's crazy.
Right. Television and movies are educational tools, or can be educational tools if you allow them to be. So with that being said, I've always been a person that looks for knowledge in various places. And again, to me, someone's always telling a story, because that's really all a movie is a story. If you're watching television, somebody's telling you a story. If you're watching the news, you're hearing real-time stories. So all these things correlate with one another, and they bring you to a place where if you allow yourself to understand and listen and basically soak in what's going on, it's going to educate you to things that you may have not even been aware of.
So Steve Martin's watching you make out. That's... Yep. Like, there are people out, you realize there are people out there today that would probably pay Steve Martin to have him watch them make out with their girlfriend. That's good on you, man.
Well, they both, the thing that brings up another interesting point. Both Steve Martin and John Candy stayed in role, whether they were on the camera or off the camera. So I got kind of the impression that Steve was kind of a prick, and he isn't. He's a very nice guy.
And then as soon as they would yell cut, he'd be like, damn, G, you make me want to do ayahuasca!
Chris Walken was so funny. I as the young character who was in love with his character, I touched him a lot in rehearsals, because that was my bad actor habit of like, I'm in love with him. And he'd go, Lila, you hit me again. You touch me again, I'm going to have to hit you. And after rehearsal, he'd lean over and go, this is going to be a disaster. Oh my God, my iTunes started again.
And that was like the greatest, weirdest ending of any movie. Like, we were just out of it and having so much fun. People were doubling over laughter. There was a scene where Glenn goes up the ladder on the side of a building to get to the roof where his feet stick in or whatever. So the stunt, we didn't have a stunt guy, but just like the props guy, he's like, I'm going to show you how to go up this ladder. He starts going up the ladder and the ladder comes off the side of the building. It's like going like this. And I'm like, thank God, like he was okay and he fell, but he was okay. And I'm like, thank God that wasn't Glenn. Like if you hadn't gone up, like stuff. So all of that just became this crazy whirlwind.
I just wanted to ask you, if it were up to you, who would the award go to between those two?
Well, they were both amazing, and but I guess I really got along with Mackay. He's such a gentleman, and I mean that's only and I'm
You don't have to apologize. You don't have to apologize for the truth. It's okay.
He's obviously Team Mackay.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. I had so much fun. And I think you're onto something. You two of the exotic names, Torian and Durden. When you wrote to me, I mean, I don't know why I said yes, Durden, but there was something about your name that was like, what is this Durden?
She wouldn't have responded to David, but Durden got through.
But David is the beloved one. Well, thank you very much for responding. And yeah, I hear you. I don't know why people are responding to me when they do either. I'm just as flabbergasted. So thank you very much for responding, and I hope you have a happy holidays and safe.
And somehow the word had leaked out that we were filming, and they all wanted to come and see, Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman. So Dustin is very outgoing. He jumped out of the trailer and said hello to everybody and signed autographs and was just so dear. And Tom wouldn't come out. And I think he was busy. It wasn't, I think. But Dustin, being Dustin, grabbed everybody and went over and surrounded Tom's trailer and said this chant, "Tom Cruise, come out. Tom Cruise, come out." All these people are saying this, and finally Tom comes and they burst into applause, and he's like grinning and he's signing autographs, and Dustin goes by me, so I'm teaching him how to be a star.
Here we go into the wild blue yonder. Here we go up and away.
In the car, I would be with Aaron Taylor Johnson, John David Washington, sometimes Matthew Marsden. A couple times I was in the car with Robert Pattinson, and we'd hop in the SUV, all of us together, and we'd be an hour and a half drive. Depending on the type of shoot we did that day, sometimes we'd be exhausted and we just lights out the whole ride. And then sometimes we'd sit there and chat it up the whole ride.
Angela Bassett's watching me. I've got to really bring this, and she thinks I'm just a stunt guy and all this. So I start preparing, and now I'm crying, and I got the snot bubbles and the whole thing, and I'm all there, and I've got my head down like this, and all of a sudden somebody comes over and touches me on the shoulder, and I hear this voice, and it says, "Okay, when the camera comes around, I want you to get." And she goes, "Oh, you're preparing. I'm sorry," and she walks away. And so now in my head, I'm thinking, this is the greatest moment as an actor, that Angela Bassett comes over and goes, "Oh, you're preparing. I'm sorry," and walks away. But I can't revel in it, because as soon as I do, I'll dry all up and think, "Oh, I'm hot shit," and all this stuff.
This project, you got to understand, was like top secret for a long time.
Mike, I could talk to you all day about The Living Wake, and I won't do that, though, for the sake of my having to get this edited before Thursday, and I'm sure you have things that you've got to get to. But this has been...
it was fun to talk about. Thank you.
Well, however you felt when you met Adam Sandler, that's me. That's me now.
Oh, well, I really appreciate it. I'm
His
so glad
nipple
you
is going
enjoyed it.
hard. If you cannot see it, his nipple is coming out through the shirt.
Find us in all these links. It's coming up right now.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.